It was a chilly evening in Los Angeles. The sun was dipping behind the skyline and the streets buzzed with weekend energy. People hurried by, heads down, phones out, ignoring the world around them. But not Jack Eastwood. He slowed down when he saw a small figure huddled near a cafe wall. A young boy, maybe 12 or 13, clutching an old backpack like it was all he had left. His clothes were torn, his shoes half falling apart, but what caught Jack's attention was the boy's eyes, tired, empty, but still kind. Jack paused. Something inside him whispered, "Don't walk away." He approached gently. "Hey, buddy," he said softly. "You okay? You hungry?" The boy looked up, startled but polite. "I'm fine, sir. I'm just resting," Jack smiled. "You sure? There's a diner across the street. Come on, I'll get you something warm." At first, the boy hesitated, maybe afraid this was some kind of trick. But when he saw the genuine kindness in Jack's eyes, he slowly nodded. Inside the diner, the boy devoured a sandwich like he hadn't eaten in days. Jack didn't ask too many questions, and he just listened. Between bites, the boy finally said, "You're the first person who's talked to me today." Jack felt a lump in his throat. "I'm Jack," he said, offering a hand. "What's your name?" "Ben," the boy replied quietly. Outside, the temperature dropped further. Jack looked at Ben's shivering hands and made a decision that even he didn't fully understand. "Ben, I live close by. You can crash at my place tonight." "Just until you figure things out." Ben's eyes widened. "Really? You'd do that?" Jack nodded. Everyone deserves a warm bed, at least for one night. The boy followed him hesitantly, unaware of whose home he was walking into, the home of Hollywood legend Clint Eastwood. That night, Jack's simple act of kindness would set off a chain of events no one could have imagined. No one could believe what happened when Clint Eastwood's grandson brought a homeless boy into his house. The night air was cold as Jack and Ben walked up the quiet driveway. The lights from the house spilled softly across the front garden. To Ben, it looked like something out of a dream. Tall windows, a wide porch, and a warm glow coming from inside. He hesitated at the gate. "Are you sure it's okay?" he asked nervously. "I don't want to cause any trouble," Jack smiled. "You're not. My family's good people. Come on." As they stepped inside, the scent of pine wood and old books filled the hall. The walls were lined with movie posters: Gran Torino, $1 Million Baby, Unforgiven. Ben's eyes widened as he looked around, recognizing a few faces from old TV clips he'd seen in shop windows. Jack's mom, Lisa Eastwood, walked into the hallway, holding a cup of tea. Her eyes went wide when she saw Ben. "Jack, who is this?" Jack rubbed the back of his neck. "Mom, this is Ben. He was outside the cafe alone. I couldn't just leave him there." Lisa blinked, processing. "Honey, you can't just bring strangers home. It's dangerous." Ben lowered his head, embarrassed. "I can leave if you want, ma'am. I understand." Something about the boy's tone softened Lisa's heart. He wasn't rude or defensive, just exhausted. She looked at Jack, then at Ben again. "You're freezing," she said finally. "Sit down. I'll get you something warm to drink." Jack smiled at his mom. "Thanks, Mom. He won't stay long. Just for the night." Ben sat quietly at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of cocoa. The warmth seemed to bring a small smile to his face for the first time that night. Lisa studied him carefully. "So, Ben, where are your parents?" Ben hesitated. His voice was barely above a whisper. "They're gone. It's just me." Lisa's expression softened further. She didn't push. The boy's honesty broke through her initial fear. Meanwhile, Jack grabbed a blanket and some old clothes from the guest room. "You can sleep here tonight," he said, setting them down. "It's not much, but it's warm." Ben looked around the cozy room, the soft lighting, the photos of Clint Eastwood through the years, smiling beside actors, directors, soldiers, presidents. He turned to Jack and said quietly, "Is this your grandpa?" Jack grinned. "Yeah, Clint Eastwood." Ben froze. "Wait, the Clint Eastwood?" Jack laughed. "Yeah, he's out of town right now filming something small. Don't worry, he won't yell at you to get off his lawn." For the first time, Ben laughed. A small, real laugh. As Jack tucked the blanket around him, Ben whispered, "No one's ever done something like this for me before." Jack shrugged. "Hey, everyone needs a break sometimes." Ben looked like he wanted to say more, but exhaustion took over. Within minutes, he was asleep. Lisa stood at the door watching. "You've got your grandfather's heart," she whispered to Jack. Jack smiled softly. "Let's hope so." Next morning, the smell of pancakes filled the air. Ben woke up disoriented for a moment before remembering where he was. He walked quietly into the kitchen, unsure if he was even allowed there. Lisa smiled when she saw him. "Morning, sweetheart, sit down." "You look like you could eat an army." He sat carefully, still shy. "Thank you, ma'am." Jack joined them with a grin. "We're heading to the community center later." "They might help get you an ID or something." Ben's eyes went wide. "You'd do that for me?" "Of course," Jack said. "You've got to start somewhere, right?" Ben nodded, speechless. He picked up a pancake, his hands trembling slightly. He didn't remember the last time he'd eaten breakfast at a real table. Lisa watched quietly. Something about the boy reminded her of the humanity people often forget to see. Have you ever helped a stranger before? Tell me in the comments, and also share which country or city you're watching this story from. And let's see how far kindness can travel. As the day went on, Ben helped Jack wash the car, feed the dogs, and even laughed a few times when Jack teased him about his rookie cleaning skills. That evening, while sitting on the porch, Ben said quietly, "You don't know what this means to me. I haven't felt safe in a long time." Jack looked out at the sunset. "You're safe now, man." That's a promise. What neither of them knew was that tomorrow, Clint Eastwood himself would be back home, and his reaction would change everything. But when Clint Eastwood returned home and saw a homeless boy sitting in his kitchen, no one could believe what happened next. Morning sunlight poured through the blinds, painting the Eastwood living room gold. Jack yawned as he came downstairs and saw Ben sitting quietly at the dining table, sipping hot cocoa. He'd already folded the blanket, cleaned his dishes, and was watching a family photo on the wall, Clint Eastwood smiling with his kids and grandkids. "You're up early," Jack said, walking in. Ben nodded. "Couldn't sleep much. This place feels unreal," Jack grinned. "You'll get used to it." Ben looked around again, awe in his eyes. "You must have a great life. Famous family, big house." "You're lucky," Jack shrugged. "I guess. But sometimes people forget what really matters." Ben tilted his head. "What's that?" Jack smiled. "Kindness, respect, stuff money can't buy." Ben thought about that quietly, then whispered, "Yeah, I know what you mean." Later that afternoon, Lisa came in from running errands holding a grocery bag. "Ben, honey, I got you a few things. Some new socks, a toothbrush, a hoodie." Ben froze, completely surprised. "You didn't have to." Lisa smiled warmly. "I know, but I wanted to." Ben blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears. "Thank you, ma'am." Jack nudged him playfully. "Careful, she likes being called Lisa." "Makes her feel younger," Lisa laughed. That's right. For the first time, the house felt lighter. Ben wasn't just a guest anymore. He was starting to feel like part of the family. That evening, while Jack was in the backyard fixing the grill, he heard soft sniffles from inside. He walked back in and saw Ben sitting on the couch, his face buried in his hands. "Hey, you okay?" Jack asked, sitting beside him. Ben hesitated before answering. "You've all been so kind to me, and I haven't told you the truth." Jack frowned. "What truth?" Ben took a shaky breath. "My parents died when I was 10. A car accident. After that, I was sent to foster care. But it didn't last. People stopped caring. I ran away last year. I've been on my own ever since." Jack's chest tightened. "You've been surviving on the streets this whole time?" Ben nodded, tears finally spilling down his cheeks. "Sometimes I slept in shelters, sometimes in parks. I tried finding work, but no one wanted to hire a kid without an address." Jack didn't know what to say. He simply placed a hand on Ben's shoulder. "You're safe now. I promise." Ben looked up, eyes red. "Why are you doing this for me, Jack?" "You don't even know me," Jack smiled softly. "Because someone once did the same for me. When I was younger, I made a lot of mistakes. My grandpa, Clint, didn't give up on me. So I won't give up on you." Ben stared at him, speechless. For the first time in a long time, he felt seen. Not as a burden, not as a problem, but as a person. That night, at dinner, Ben helped set the table. He was awkward, but Lisa guided him patiently. As they ate, Jack brought it up carefully. "Mom, I was thinking, maybe Ben could stay a little longer. Just until we figure something out, maybe school or a job." Lisa hesitated, cutting her food slowly. "Jack," Ben interrupted softly. "It's okay. I can leave tomorrow. I don't want to be a problem." Lisa sighed deeply, looking between the two of them. She saw the sincerity in Ben's eyes and the quiet determination in Jack's. Finally, she said, "You can stay, but we'll take things one step at a time, all right?" Ben's face lit up. "Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Lisa." Jack smiled proudly. "Told you she likes that." They all laughed, and for the first time, Ben felt like he belonged somewhere. The next morning was quiet, the kind of calm before something unexpected happens. Jack and Ben were in the backyard, feeding the dogs and laughing about something silly. Ben looked happier than he had in months. The dark circles under his eyes had softened, and for the first time, he looked like a regular kid. Inside, Lisa was setting the table for breakfast when the sound of a car engine rumbled up the driveway. She froze, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Jack!" she called out. "Your grandfather's home." Jack's eyes widened. "He wasn't supposed to be back until Friday." Ben looked up, confused. "Your grandpa?" Jack chuckled nervously. "Yeah, about that. You're about to meet Clint Eastwood." Ben nearly dropped the dog's bowl. "The Clint Eastwood? The movie guy?" Jack nodded. "Yup, just be yourself, okay?" Ben's heart started pounding. "What if he gets mad? He doesn't even know I'm here." Jack placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "He's tough, but he's got a good heart. Trust me." The front door opened. The sound of heavy boots on hardwood echoed through the hallway. Then came that unmistakable gravelly voice. "Lisa?" "Jack?" Lisa smiled. "Welcome home, Clint." Clint Eastwood stepped into the light, tall, silver-haired, and sharp-eyed despite his age. His presence filled the room like a scene straight out of one of his old films. He put down his bag and looked around. "Feels good to be home?" Then he noticed Ben, a young stranger standing near the kitchen doorway, looking like he wanted to disappear. Clint's brows furrowed. "Who's this?" Jack cleared his throat. "Grandpa, this is Ben. He's staying with us for a little while." "Staying," Clint repeated, his voice firm. "Why?" Lisa stepped in quickly. "Jack found him near the cafe a few nights ago. The boy had nowhere to go. We couldn't just leave him out there." Clint's eyes shifted back to Ben. He didn't say a word, just studied him. The silence was heavy, almost uncomfortable. Ben swallowed hard and said quietly, "Sir, I'm sorry if I've caused any trouble." "I can leave if you want." Clint tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "You eat breakfast yet, kid?" Ben blinked. "No, sir." Clint nodded toward the table. "Then sit down. Nobody leaves this house hungry." Ben hesitated, then slowly sat. Lisa smiled softly, relieved. As they ate, Clint asked questions in that calm, deliberate tone that carried weight even when he whispered. "So, Ben, where you from?" "Mostly around here, sir," Ben replied. "Used to live with my parents before they passed. Been moving around since." Clint listened without interrupting, occasionally sipping his coffee. "You in school?" Ben shook his head. "Not anymore." "Hard to go to school when you don't have a home." Clint's jaw tightened slightly, but his eyes softened. "I see." Jack watched the exchange quietly, unsure what his grandfather was thinking. Clint was never quick to speak, but when he did, it always mattered. After breakfast, Clint stood up and motioned for Jack to join him outside. They stepped onto the porch, sunlight spilling over the yard. Clint leaned on the railing, looking at his grandson. "You've got a good heart, Jack, but bringing a stranger into the house, that's a big decision." Jack nodded. "I know, but I couldn't just leave him out there. He's a good kid. You'll see." Clint was silent for a long moment, watching the wind move through the trees. Then he said, "Sometimes the world needs people who take chances." "You did the right thing." Jack smiled, relief washing over him. So, you're not mad? Clint smirked. Mad? No, just surprised. You sound more like me than I thought. They both laughed softly. Inside, Ben quietly helped Lisa clear the dishes. When Clint walked back in, he stopped for a moment, watching how the boy moved. Careful, respectful, grateful. Clint finally spoke. You've got manners, kid. I like that. Ben looked up surprised. Thank you, sir, Clint nodded. And stop calling me sir. Makes me feel old. Ben smiled shyly. Yes, Mr. Eastwood, Lisa chuckled. That's not much better. For the first time, Clint laughed. That low, warm laugh that could light up a room. As the evening settled in, Clint sat in his armchair while Jack and Ben played chess at the table. The old man watched them silently, a faint smile on his face. He finally said, almost to himself, sometimes the best thing a man can do is give someone a chance. Jack looked up. What's that, Grandpa? Clint shook his head, smiling. Nothing, just thinking out loud, but deep down he knew something had shifted in the house. The boy wasn't just a stranger anymore. He was a second chance for everyone in that room, and from that day on, Ben's life and the Eastwoods would never be the same again. As days passed, Clint Eastwood began to see something in Ben that reminded him of his own past, and that's when everything changed. The days that followed felt different, lighter somehow. Ben slowly settled into the Eastwood household, and though he was still shy, the tension from that first encounter was gone. Clint had accepted him, maybe even liked him, though he didn't say it out loud. Every morning, Ben woke up early to help Lisa with breakfast. He washed dishes, fed the dogs, and tidied the porch. He never waited to be asked. He just did it. One morning, Clint walked into the kitchen and found Ben wiping down the counters. You trying to put me out of a job, kid? He said in his gravelly tone. Ben smiled. Just trying to help, sir. I mean, Mr. Eastwood. Clint chuckled. You can call me Clint. I've been called worse. Ben laughed quietly. Yes, Clint. Clint nodded. Good, now come on. Let's get some air. Outside, the California sun was warm but not harsh. Clint led Ben to the old tool shed behind the house, a place filled with memories. Movie props, old tools, and vintage cameras covered the shelves. He handed Ben a small wooden box. Open it. Inside was a weathered pocket knife with the initials CE carved on the handle. I got that when I was about your age, Clint said, sitting down on a bench. My dad gave it to me. Told me, a man's hands should build, not destroy. Ben turned the knife over in his hands carefully. It's beautiful. Clint smiled faintly. You've been through a lot, haven't you? Ben nodded slowly. Yeah, but this is the first place that's ever felt like home. Clint looked at him, the sincerity in his eyes impossible to ignore. Then treat it like one. You don't need to earn your place here, kid. Just be honest, work hard, and respect others. That's all that matters. Ben nodded firmly. I will, Clint, I promise. Over the next few weeks, the bond between them grew stronger. Clint started teaching Ben small things, how to sand wood, how to use tools, how to fix the squeaky hinges on the barn door. Every lesson came with a story, sometimes funny, sometimes deep. See this scar? Clint said once, pointing to his hand. Got it when I was building my first fence. Thought I knew everything. Turns out I knew nothing. Life's a good teacher, if you listen. Ben listened to every word, soaking it all in. Lisa noticed the change, too. You've got that spark back, she told Clint one evening as they watched the two boys, Jack and Ben, working together outside. Clint smiled faintly. They remind me of myself years ago, except they're better versions. One afternoon, Jack came home from a meeting looking proud. Guess what? He said. I talked to someone at the youth center. They're offering Ben a spot in their mentorship program, and maybe even a scholarship if he keeps his grades up once he goes back to school. Ben froze, unsure if he'd heard right. A scholarship? For me? Jack nodded. Yeah, buddy. You earned it. Ben's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Clint stepped forward, his voice steady but gentle. Don't say anything. Just make it count. Ben nodded. I will, Clint. I promise. That evening, as the sun set over the hills, Ben and Clint sat on the porch in silence. The air was filled with the soft sounds of crickets and wind through the trees. "Clint," Ben said after a while, "Yeah, kid? Do you ever regret anything?" Clint stared out at the horizon. "Everyone does, but regrets only win if you stop moving forward." Ben nodded thoughtfully. "Then I'll keep moving," Clint smiled. That's the spirit. They sat there quietly for a while longer. It wasn't the kind of silence that felt awkward. It was the kind that spoke of understanding, of connection, of unspoken respect. As the days turned into weeks, the Eastwood house felt alive again. Jack, Lisa, and Clint often found themselves laughing around the dinner table, something that hadn't happened in years. Ben had brought a spark of innocence, gratitude, and hope into their lives. And though no one said it aloud, everyone felt it. He wasn't a guest anymore. He was family. But Clint Eastwood had one more surprise for Ben, something that would change the boy's future forever. A few weeks later, Clint Eastwood received an invitation to a charity gala in Los Angeles, a fundraiser for homeless youth. Normally, he kept to himself, but this time felt different. At breakfast, he mentioned it casually. "They want me to speak," he said, sipping his coffee. "About hope. About giving second chances." Jack smiled. "That's right up your alley," Lisa added. "You should go. People need to hear your voice again." Clint nodded, then looked at Ben. "How about you come with me, kid?" Ben froze. "Me? But I've never been to anything like that," Clint smirked. "Good. Then it's about time you do." The night of the gala arrived. The ballroom was glowing with soft golden light, filled with celebrities, philanthropists, and reporters. Flashbulbs flickered as Clint Eastwood walked in, tall, calm, legendary. But what caught people's attention wasn't just the icon himself. It was the quiet young boy walking beside him in a borrowed suit. Ben's hands trembled slightly. "Clint, I don't belong here." Clint placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "You belong anywhere you decide to stand, son." Ben took a deep breath. "Okay." The event went on. Speeches, music, applause. Then, when it was time for Clint to speak, the entire room fell silent. He stood on stage, steady and dignified, his voice carrying the same weight it always had. That mix of grit and wisdom that could silence a crowd with one sentence. "Most people know me for the movies I've made," he began. "But life's greatest stories aren't written in scripts. They happen quietly, when no one's watching." He paused, looking directly at Ben, who sat in the front row. "Not long ago," Clint continued, "my grandson brought home a young man who had nowhere to go. He'd been living on the streets, not because he did something wrong, but because the world forgot to care." Whispers spread through the audience. Cameras began flashing again. Clint went on, voice steady. "That boy taught me something I'd forgotten, that hope doesn't come from wealth or fame. It comes from kindness, from giving someone a chance to stand again." The room was silent. Even the air felt still. Then Clint said something that no one expected. "I'd like you all to meet that boy tonight." He motioned toward Ben. Every eye in the room turned. Ben froze, his heart pounding in his chest. "Come on up here, son," Clint said gently. Ben hesitated, then slowly stood and walked toward the stage. The crowd parted for him, whispering his name as if they already knew it. When he reached the stage, Clint placed a hand on his shoulder. "Everyone, this is Ben. He's proof that no matter where you come from, your story isn't over until you decide it is." The audience erupted in applause. Some people stood, others wiped tears from their eyes. Ben looked overwhelmed. "Clint, I don't know what to say," Clint smiled. "Then don't say anything. Just remember this moment." After the speech, reporters gathered around wanting to know more. Photos of Clint and Ben flooded social media. The headlines read, "Clint Eastwood and his grandson help homeless teen rebuild his life. Hollywood legend's act of kindness goes viral." Within hours, the internet exploded with support. Messages poured in from all over the world. From New York to Manila, people wrote about second chances, compassion, and the power of doing good. Ben's story touched millions. Schools, shelters, and organizations started new programs to support homeless youth, inspired by Clint's speech. Back at home a few days later, Ben sat quietly on the porch, scrolling through the messages on his phone. He looked up as Clint joined him with 2 mugs of hot cocoa. "Still reading?" Clint asked with a grin. Ben nodded. "People are so kind." "I don't even know them, but they care." Clint looked out at the horizon. "That's the thing about goodness. It spreads when you least expect it." Ben smiled. "You think I'll ever be able to help someone the way you helped me?" Clint turned toward him, eyes steady. "You already have, son. You just don't know it yet." Ben looked down, holding back tears. "Thank you. For everything." Clint leaned back, his trademark half-smile forming. "Don't thank me. Just pass it on." That evening, the sun dipped low over the hills, casting long golden shadows across the ranch. The world seemed quiet, peaceful, like it was pausing to breathe. Inside, Jack and Lisa watched from the window, Clint and Ben sitting side by side, talking softly. Lisa whispered, "You know he's changed," Jack nodded. Both of them have. But Clint Eastwood wasn't done yet. He had one final gift for Ben, one that would change his life forever. A few weeks had passed since the charity gala, but the world hadn't stopped talking about it. Clint Eastwood and the homeless boy he helped were everywhere, in magazines, interviews, and viral videos. But at home, things stayed simple. Clint didn't care for the fame. What mattered was what came next. One morning, Clint called Ben out to the backyard. The sun was rising, casting a soft gold glow over the fields. "Come on, kid," he said, walking toward the old workshop. "Got something to show you." Ben followed, curious. Inside, the smell of wood and oil filled the air. Clint handed him an envelope. "What's this?" Ben asked. "Open it," Clint said. Ben tore it open carefully. Inside was a set of documents and a key. He frowned, confused. "I don't understand," Clint smiled faintly. "That's because you're looking at it, not seeing it. That key belongs to the new youth training center, the one we're building here in town. It's going to help kids like you, kids who just need someone to believe in them." Ben's eyes widened. "You mean—" "Yeah," Clint said. "And I want you to help run it." Ben blinked in disbelief. "Me? I don't know anything about that." Clint placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "You know more than you think. You know what it feels like to be forgotten. And you know what it means to be given a chance. That's all the training you need." Tears welled up in Ben's eyes. "Clint, I don't even know how to thank you," Clint chuckled softly. "You don't have to. Just keep the door open for the next kid who needs a place to stand." Ben nodded, wiping his tears. "I will. I promise." Months later, the Eastwood Hope Center officially opened its doors. Kids from all walks of life came, some homeless, some lost, all searching for direction. Ben stood at the entrance on opening day, shaking hands, greeting families, smiling proudly. Clint watched from a few steps away, his trademark squint hiding the emotion in his eyes. Jack leaned over and whispered, "You proud of him, Grandpa?" Clint smirked. "I was proud the day he walked through our door." The crowd applauded as Clint and Ben cut the ribbon together. Reporters cheered, cameras flashed, and the sound of hope filled the air. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Ben and Clint sat outside the center, watching the lights glow softly through the windows. Ben said quietly, "You changed my life, Clint." Clint shook his head. "No, son. You changed your own. I just gave you a place to start." Ben smiled. "Still feels like a dream." Clint looked out toward the horizon. "That's the funny thing about dreams. Sometimes they just need a little help becoming real." The two sat in silence for a long while, the wind rustling the trees, the stars slowly appearing above them. It was peaceful. The kind of peace that comes after a long journey finally finds its ending. Clint turned to Ben one last time. "Remember, kid, legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's who you lift up." Ben nodded. "I'll never forget that." From the streets to the spotlight, from struggle to strength, Ben's story reminds us all. Kindness doesn't just change lives, it creates legacies. Final call to action. If you believe one act of compassion can change the world, type HOPE in the comments and subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one.